Hi, Sportster Paul here. Today we're going to tear apart a Harley Model 65B generator. It was 1982, 83, and the beginning of 84 on Sportsters. Then what happened? Late 84, they switched to an alternator under the clutch thing, and I don't like that buried under the primary stuff, so I'm just sticking to generators. Here's the two different labels. The Skycam will show you. I'm not sure which was first and which was second. Part number 29975-75B. I hope you got a parts manual handy. Let's see if I can find it get it out for you. Get the cover out. This is both, I've got an earlier model parts manual and, if I can separate it, see, this later model parts manual for 79 to 85. And if I held the page right, there's a different part number. If this cover here is black instead of polished aluminum, there's a different generator black end cover. That part number is 29978-77A. Now, I'm told they'll fit in older bikes, but they're a little bit bigger. So I think you have to grind the case a little, right where that big tab thing comes down towards where the flywheel is. You got to get in there and grind it a little. Here's a 65A that we rebuilt the other day. So you can see this guy, well, it's physically smaller. It is considerably shorter, right? Although it's kind of deceiving because the bearing here is kind of almost level. So it comes out about the same. They were nice enough to leave the 5/16 24 fine thread, UNF fine thread nut on the armature shaft. However, these suckers are metric. The terminals are now metric, and that's kind of a pain in the butt. The parts book has a part number. I'm sure it's a standard. Take it down to Ace Hardware and you can find what M3, M5, whatever it is. What else do we want to say? Oh, the sizes. Where's a good one to show you? I guess this one. I got 7 of them. Anytime I could see one, I'd buy one. So let's look at this guy. It doesn't have the generator or the gear on it. And I can take, this is an end bell, what is it, an aluminum end bell, aftermarket, from the older 65A, and it'll just fit right over here. And now you can kind of see the size difference. Let's turn it this way. And you can kind of get an idea. It's just a little bit bigger. And then they both grind. Let's see if I can find it here. On the 65A, they kind of grind this back or mold it back in the aluminum one. This one here, it's kind of rough sand so that, now there may be a way you can grind on this if you don't want to hack up your old cases. I've got a 1952K model we're going to get into in a month or two. So that's when I'll kind of compare and see. I would not grind on a 1952 case. I'm sorry. If there's a way to grind this thing, we'll find out. The other tricky, I don't know, just the long bolt that holds it together, right? When we start tearing it apart. It's got a lock washer on it, called out in the parts book as a 1/4 inch. I'm sorry. Where can you see? Is this going to be good? That's a 1/4 inch. That's an English fastener. This is what under there. It's noticeably smaller. And this bolt is not 1/4 28 like the long bolts used in the 65A. Instead, there's some metric thread. I just happened to dig through. I don't have many metric fasteners, but this thing here is the metric that comes with battery terminals, right? And this screws on. So whatever M, you know what. So let's get this back together. I have our test subject over here, which we'll get into in a bit. What else did I want to tell you? The service manual. It's okay. This is the 79 to 85 to cover these years. It's okay, but a lot of the generator stuff in all of the service manuals, it's like they were written in 1950, and they've got that same mentality. The sick one, I've got one that's dead, and I bought an Armature on eBay. We'll go over all the choices I looked at and why I bought the one I did. It looks like new old stock. It looks like an actual Harley part. And there's several of them for sale, anywhere from $75 plus shipping to $200 that you can get on the internet. So we'll go through that stuff, the pullers, the tools. Meanwhile, I want to get the test rig I built. I showed you in that other show. Get that over here and show you why the sick one is sick. Okay? So we'll be back in a flash after I rearrange things. So we've got our home-built test rig, a DC power supply, 100 and some volts, 115-volt DC motor I got at a salvage yard in Silicon Valley. The generator we want to test, this load box down here that puts resistor loads, or I got some light bulbs in here. This is how we tested all those other ones. I've tested these already. They're marked. That's why I know this one is dead. So let's go through the sensible way to check if it just walks in the shop or something. Come on. So this is a good ohm meter. It's got to measure down really low. Low enough that it'll actually give a reading if you just hook the two leads together like this. Can you see that? What's it point to? Shake them a little bit. 0.28 or so, 0.27 ohms. That's the resistance, right? So then I like to put the red on the armature. I don't even know why. Here's and 6.45, so you can subtract a couple tenths off of that. That's a legit number for this. It reads a little higher. It's more like 5 ohms for the 65As, 6 ohms, or a little over for these. But that tells you the field's good, which means it makes magnetism. The coils that make the magnetism go through it are fine. And like I've said with the other ones, the armature is what usually fails. This one, I have a note, it's stiff, it makes noise, it just doesn't feel like the other ones, and it'll barely motor. Let's show you that. Oh no, before we show you that, here's another test I half invented. Let's just come here and look directly at the resistance of the armature. Hopefully it'll pinch my finger. So I might have to cheat on this one because I can't see. Kiloohms, right? 170 kiloohms. Something's wrong there. Rotate it a little, it goes overload. Kiloohms. It should be like an ohm, 1 ohm, 2 ohms. Overload. So you still got the K. This is why I don't like this meter, because to tell you K, it just puts that little, barely can read it. But somewhere here, there'll be a couple segments that get more normal. The meter hops because it's actually making a little voltage when you turn it. So that's nothing to worry about. Just let go. Boy, this thing's just not doing any kind of good. It wasn't this bad when, it had a couple of places where it was like 40 ohms or 60 ohms. This guy isn't happy to be that high, right? And this, like I say, they didn't have ohm meters this good. 2 kiloohms, so that's getting a little better. 57 kiloohms. It's not the 1, 2, 3 ohms that you want to see, okay? So that's an issue. So then, let's take it, and we're going to motor the generator. And what that does, first you need a little black jumpery thing, which I've managed to lose. Here's a red one. I guess I could use the red. No, here's the black one. OCD. All right. So you take the field terminal and ground it. That's how one side of the field coils are connected to the armature inside. The other side, when you want output, you pull it down to ground. So now we've grounded that, so this generator will make magnetism. We've got this power supply. It's off now. Let's get the negative. Will it go in here? I guess it'll fit there. Get the positive. Remember, this could be lethal voltages, so be careful. Shouldn't get up too high. This motor's 100 and some, and you got to buzz it. Let me go turn this guy on. Hear the little fan going. Connect to the armature. Field's grounded. The one side of the power supply ground is to the metal frame. The other side's here. It's drawing 2 amps, 3 amps, See the you saw it move a little bit there, right? But it should just be motoring smoothly. I've got almost 50 volts. Let's put 50 volts. Now, see, but it's not smooth. It sounds rough. There we go. It's taken about 10 amps and 25, 35, 30, 35 volts. And you can just see it's hopping. That's either bad commutator segments or melted wires inside the armature. Let's kill it. I can also feel it getting warm because it's taking that much current. It should not take, it's kind of one of those symmetrical things. If it's meant to make 14 amps, 13, 14 amps at 13, 14 volts, putting in that much should get the thing spinning like a banshee, right? So we'll get this. I'm not even gonna show you, it's dead, right? It barely motors, it feels stiff, right? So the bearings are shot. Interestingly, when you buy an armature for this later model one, the 2 bearings come with it, sealed, ready to go. So rather than hook this thing up, just to show you, yeah, it doesn't have any output no matter how fast you spin it. Let's move this out of the way and start tearing into this, okay? So back in a flash. All right, we got the generator, the gear, and the oil slinger here put back on. Can you see it? This is what's a little tricky. When you take it out of the bike, you take the 2 bolts off of the gear case cover on this side, and it'll flop down a little, but it won't come out. You got to go way down and pick it up and get this oil slinger big washer up and over the gear that's driving this gear, and then you can get it out and in your hands. This is the, I'm not sure, older or newer label. I tested them all last week with all the 65As. This is number 2. It's 6.2 ohms, kind of verified. Yeah, the field coils seem good. 0 volts and no motor, stiff. Oh, it actually freed up driving it this little bit. So whatever stiffness in those bearings is a little bit smoother. It's kind of high resistance. We'll compare it to the other one. Before we tear it apart, I want to show you the armatures I bought on the armature. I bought a bunch of 65As we're going to compare, 6 of those. And in the next show, we'll look at the good ones, bad ones, everything from $20 to $120. So this one, can you see it from the sky cam? It looks like an NOS, and to me, NOS means factory Harley Davidson new old stock. It doesn't mean V-twin NOS or Drag Specialties NOS. Let's keep it OEM. It could be counterfeit, but when we go through the ones that I looked at, this one was about $90, $89 free shipping. I got it from, this is the one I bought, okay? I'm gonna put this is my reminder, but I'll put the screenshot up here. Folks named Harley guys, they're in Pennsylvania, which I like because like Bill's Custom Cycles is in Pennsylvania and cool Harley folks are in Pennsylvania. So that made me feel good. They did say NOS. They had a picture of this box that showed you, the Harley label and stuff. The counterfeiters got to be a little careful if they try to do that. So this might be truly NOS. I ordered it. Where did I mark it? Look at this. I ordered it May 12th. It came May 15th. That's because they sprung free shipping, but they sprung for priority. $89.95. No tax, no nothing. They used 2 bags to get a little extra padding. What the post office doesn't know won't hurt them. So we'll get rid of this. Where are we going to put it? Let's put it down here. Here's the box it came in. Like I say, let's get the part numbers so you can read them. Maybe I have to refocus that to get it in. So here it is. Beautiful. And we'll go over the ones I didn't choose. I think they're all the same, to tell you the truth. It's got this red winding here. The commutator segments are very close together. They're narrower and a very low gap. This is part of what Hitachi brought to the party, right? Compared to this old Prestolite 65A. The bearings come mounted on it. They're sealed. You don't have to worry about lubrication. This doesn't need to get lubricated from the gear case cover like the 65As. These bearings have a little drag, so maybe it wasn't that unusual. Here's the 65A, the 1965 to 1981. And you can see, shorter, less meat, the fact, what's important is the amount of metal here, right? Going here, the fact that this is more metal, that tells you there's more wire length to make the electricity, so this one should come up at a lower RPM, as well as being wound. The wires look heavier in this compared to these wires. Of course, this could be aftermarket. There's no telling. Those 6 that I bought seem to have different wire gauges. And if it's a 6 volt, it might have a different wire gauge. But this looks really, really well made. It's clean. It's wrapped in this. It could have been a little bit better protected. Some of these other ones that I got of the older model, they took a lot of trouble to protect this pointy thing, right? Because I guess that's what punches through the boxes and causes trouble. But what I look for in quality, and you'll see it when we go through the pictures that may have just confused me. I don't know. I like that these commutator segments are all perfectly spaced. See how nice these look? This is a tip for people taking pictures. I like that the groove is nice and constant. There's not any little chips or chunks. I like that there's some treatment here, that it's got this winding, this red rope or twine or whatever, lacquered in. That keeps the wires from flying out, right? If you spin them fast enough, the wires will fly out and start moving, and that's bad news. So this is a beauty. This is what's going to go in this thing. So let me put the screenshot up. Harley guys, $89.95. The part number for the armature is 29920-82. These guys, they had 2. I bought 1. I thought about buying the other one because it looks so good, but all my other ones measure good. I'm not going to be greedy and take a good quality armature from good quality people away. Now, the ones I didn't buy, for $75, I thought, oh, that's even better. They show the same box, right? It says this same stuff. They say NOS Harley. And then it was just now looking over this. Robeson, he's a famous Daytona Beach Harley dealer, right? He has been in the racing thing from day one. He's just a totally cool outfit. I don't know if the founder's still alive. But here's the trick. $75, what turned me off? Oh, but $15 shipping. It's coming, 50 miles from Daytona Beach. Now, because there's tax, so really it's $75 plus $15.50, that's $90. So, about the same, but there's $10 tax, $97 or $7 tax, $97.74. So it was a price, but now that I realize it's Robeson, highly recommended. And here's the reason I rejected it, not realizing the quality of the picture, right? Look at how the laminations look all jaggy. Look at how the commutator looks kind of torn up and jagged. I think that's just a bad picture, right? I don't think they had enough light or eBay screwed up the picture. So I rejected that one. That's why I didn't get that one. Meanwhile, there's an $86 one. Here's that one. Where does it come from? Baltimore, Kiwi Sports, probably like New Zealand people. I guess it was the same thing, free shipping. Doesn't say expedited. I think the one I bought said free expedited. Yeah, free expedited. So this might have come slow train. About the same price. Doesn't say they just have a couple of them. But then here's the blow up of the picture for that one. And you can see it just looked rougher, and it might just be the lighting in the picture. Now I'm they didn't have a picture of the box either to show, is this Newell stock in the box, or is it one laying around, or who knows? But I suspect, it's got the same red twine wrapping it up. It's the same thing. I just didn't know. You know. Then here's one I rejected, simple price. It is an outfit, eharleyparts.com. I'm sure they're good people. They're not trying to rip you off. They just have to charge what they paid for it, and they may have paid a lot. They've got a picture of the box. They want $200. They've got only one of them. It's not an eBay deal. You buy direct. They may or may not take PayPal. So that's one I did not pick up. So that's the armatures. This is the one I picked. This is the one going in the bike. Let's put it down up front here. And then let me get this guy and we'll start tearing into it. Alrighty, I'll be back in a sec. All right, we're back. Let's get the gear off. Oops, that's a 1/2 wrench. Now, taking it off, you could use an impact. I don't believe in using impacts to put stuff on, and I don't believe in using impacts to take things off. When you pull this prevailing torque nut here on, it's actually pushing the gear onto a round part of the shaft, and there's a lot of pressure. So trying to gauge, I really like to feel things as they tighten. I've been doing this for years. I've had other mechanics say, yeah, that's what I do. Take a big channel locks and 1/2 wrench. Hold the channel locks pretty, you don't want it slipping. That's why I don't like prevailing torque nuts, or nylocks as they're called. I told you how I can replace that with a disc lock washer. Got my hefty bags or whatever. So a bin, always a place for all the parts. Learn that helping out at a real shop. Keep all the parts together. Oops, I'm kicking stuff. All right, hang on. Tearing the place up. Okay, so to get the gear out, let's get this cleaned up a little so you can get a little landing ramp here to see what I'm doing. I have, what's a good one to show? I guess the Skycam. This is a cheap, Harbor Freight Taiwan pullers. This one's actually bent from pulling something, with so much force, it twists these things. I tried using this, and it kind of worked, but it kind of popped off. This one's on light. I think it would come off with this. If you read I told you, the service manual, which you should also own. Let's get the right one out here. The parts manual as well, right? But the service manual calls out the special tools they want you to pull this gear off. Either this one, 97715-19A, and it's a special tool made, I guess. It'll cup around that gear, get in there, and yank it off. Or, failing that, they say, well, you can use the 635-46 all-purpose claw puller in conjunction with the 637-46, released in 1946, right after World War II, the wedge attachment for claw puller, and this wedgie thing gets behind the gear, right? And then the claw puller pulls on that. What I found, I think I showed you this with the other one, this thing. It's that same cheap Taiwan puller. Well, Taiwan's probably good stuff now. Red Chinese, I guess. I welded in the plates here. I welded in plates here. I ran, just using a Lincoln arc welder, stick welder, a big bead in this fillet, a big bead in this fillet, beat it up here on the outside to make it stiffer. And this has always worked well. Now what I should probably be doing is grind a little divot in there so it fits the gear better. But it's never failed me. Let's see if we can get it going. I put some Molly grease, that Molly assembly lube that I like. Come on, there we go. Something sharp just bit me. What was that? Oh, it's on this threaded shaft. So turn. Oh, it's taking a little bit of force. There, you might have heard a little pop. So now it's coming off the smooth part. I'll show you what I'm talking about. There, now it's popped off. Put this back, put the failed ones back, don't work so good. You know me, working out of the box. So, here's the gear. You can see in here it's smooth, right? And it picks up the very end smooth part of this shaft here, and then it butts up. The splines here, they go on pretty easy, right? The splines usually aren't a press. So we got that. Now, I've never done this before. I haven't rebuilt a 65 Beast. So share this excitement together. 2 cap head screws here. I have a little. Boy, if there's a way to screw it up, I'll find it. There we go. I have my mic cord. I see why they put them inside people's shirts. What am I looking for? Allen wrenches. And because this is one of those, even though it's English 5/16 24 here on the armature nose, these aren't. So you learn after a while, it's a 5mm wrench. Oh, this guy's loose already. That tells you something. Somebody's been in this thing. I'll go in the parts washer. This one, equally loose. Let's make sure I'm doing the right one. Stiff, no motoring. No motor means when we put voltage to it, it barely would turn. That's that armature. Now the brushes might be bad, right? It's conceivable when we get into this. The armature will be good, and the brushes is what will be bad. So metric cap heads. And apparently I've got the mic cable stuck again. Oh, look, it just pulled apart. Otherwise you can take a rubber mallet and kind of tap it this way. Usually it comes apart. Well, the armature's coming out too. That's a plus. Now here's something, I think it's a design flaw. I think Harley didn't communicate how this thing gets bolted into the motorcycle. On this end cap, it's got A for armature for this terminal, F for field, and then a weep hole, a big hole. And it points up. So it lets water come into the thing, and then it's sealed here. So look what's happened to this one. From this weep hole on the top, it's filled up the bottom, and it's all corroded and grody in there. This, they warn you, oh, see, here they are. This is why it is nice to kind of have the parts manual. These are, look, there's more than one. There's at least 2 thrust washers that they put here to keep this thing calmed down. So those will go in the parts washer and clean up. I don't think there's any more in there. This thing, if I bead blast the outside, it'll take the, it'll turn it satiny. But bead blasting the inside might be approved. Then on this side, the way they did it is they took, oh, my tape's going to get ripped. Oh, look. Oh, I love those Japanese. They make things. Well, let's get the label off, right? Like we did the other one. We're going to put a fixed label on it anyway when we're done. Put that down. So the armature is all black. Be a shame if the brushes are bad in this. And so this thing, I don't know, it's just falling apart. It's got a seal here. I doubt it's the same seal that a 65A. I'll look it up and pause for a little bit and get back to you. But the interesting, the bolt holes or through holes to grind this back. See, they've got a divot in it right here to help clear that engine case. How much you could grind back and on an older motor, a pre-80, 81 and earlier, hard to say. So there's a seal here, needs to get popped out. We'll look at doing that. The armature should come out this way, right? Feel the bearings, they're pretty smooth. Armature comes out this way. Smell it. Doesn't smell burnt. Oh, there's the problem. This brush is hung. Boy, I can't wait to put this same armature in and see if I get output. This brush is hung up. There's this springy thing that's supposed to spring them. Now, it may be corrosion because of that water, right? These idiots with their weep hole on the top of the thing. Could you engineers talk to one another? I guess I like having the plate in my hand, right? This is the same thing with those engine cases. Don't be throwing stuff in there, nicking it up. This is I guess it's maybe one of those combination Phillips head straight slots. number two, here it is. Oh, I love when that happens. Okay, so we got two solutions to that when you can't get a Phillips head screw out. One is this little old Craftsman number 4119, made in USA. It's actually a little socket. It's got a thing to throw one way or the other. This is loosened. And then this thing, which is just a smaller, what's that, a number 1, I guess? I don't know. And a number 2 here. So let's see if this goes in. Let's put it back together. It's got a roll pin here, like the 65As, so that's good to know. They just cut a big notch to get the wire through. That's good to know. Let's see if we can... Else it's time for Croyle. Okay, so I'll get this guy backed out. See how this one moves and this one's stuck. So let's get this guy out. What's going on? Okay, this terminal is coming over from the brush. Keep the little screw here. Everybody works different. Some guys just throw everything in there. Let's get this in our little bin. Get these guys back. I'm certainly not going to spray Croyle on the brushes, right? You don't want that carbon. But what jammed these so tight? It's not a coil spring like the 65As. It's like the old Honda Dream valves where it's like a torsion spring thing that presses. You can see, can you see it? There's, I'll get a good angle for you guys. You can see here there's like a rust spot on the brushes. Oh, okay, that's like dirt or something that's because there's no pressure. That scrapes off, so that's good to know. This brush looks okay because it's working. Wouldn't it be great? I'll have a new armature. The old armature might still be okay. Boy, is this thing stuck in here. The hoop, this is the ground side, I think. Yeah, because you can see this side, it's just hard riveted in. So this is the ground side brush. Man, I just don't know how rude to get with this. Oh, wait a minute. No. I thought it was cracked, but that's just a groove in the back of the brush. Like I say, I haven't been in these before, so bear with me. I guess, that's a trick I can see. It looks like you can pull the spring off, which we did. So there's the spring, the torsion spring for the brushes. Might as well pull the other one off too. Get that out. So this brush now comes out, and this we can remember is the compare these two later. This one, always get ahead of myself, huh? Let's get our little gizmos back. Here a little Croyle might go a long way. A little Croyle lever from way back. All right, it's a penetrating oil. I'm doing that as hard as I can to keep it from galling out the Phillips head. Oh, and I didn't look carefully enough to see, are these slotted? No. Is there a little lock? There is a little lock washer. To be a cool guy, you'd replace that. Is it captivated? Yes. It's going to be awful hard to see, but there's a tiny little captivated washer. So it'd be nice to have a handful of these. We'll put this one back. This thing is good to be. Now we can push this way. Ain't happening. Push this way. Ain't happening. Okay. I'm trying to save the brush, right? That's why I'm being such a jerk about not getting rude with this and just taking a hammer to it. My favorite hammer, this little ball peen. So the plate down here, kind of an angle. Let's see if we can, we can actually pry in a way. No, that ain't gonna happen. Man, I certainly don't want to hit that brush. Oh, I flushed it up. It moved. So you get a little motion. That's, see, did you see? I hope you caught it on the Skycam. So getting a little motion back and forth. Now I might have to go, I don't want to bore you folks pushing it back and forth. I suspect all of this is because of this stupid weep hole on the top of this cap, right? Instead of on the bottom. So this is a note to self. Silicone this thing up, be careful, but the bearings are sealed so you can't get the silicone in, or JB weld for that matter. And then saw on the bottom here, saw a weep slot, because it's all, you know, if oil gets in there, you want an opening to the outside world. Interesting. Oh, this little boss here with a hole, that's to pick up that little roll pin, just like the other older generators, right? This goes in only one way, even though the bolts will fit two ways. The roll pin means it only goes together one way. So, you know, I think I am going to just pause here and work on this back and forth, and look at my hands, right? A little carbon. So I'll be back in a flash. Okay, back, I pushed a little with the hammer. We got the terminals out. I tried a dental tool, you know, kind of going around the thing. Let's get this up where you can see it. There you go. And this goofy little puller, which was meant for the old style battery posts, you know, where if you're old enough, you remember when they didn't screw a battery cable in your car. They had this hoopy little post, and this is meant to pull it. I took the screw out so it gets kind of closer, and it's still at an angle. I couldn't get in on the very edge, but now it just seems to be walking out. Can you see it? Oops. I'm screwing up. Let's get it hooked up a little bit. Turn it. I kind of like doing things with like this with more even pressure. See it coming? A little. Little. Now if I turn it, that should push it a little too. Good. It's awfully gummy. I don't know what we're going to find in here. Boy, it's still tight. Right to the bitter end. There we go. This little tool, I mean, I for the gear shift on iron Sportsters, it's what I used to use to get them off. I got to go wash my hands and clean up. But how does this all work? Okay, so that's clean. Brushes in one piece. The holder doesn't look too bad. Let's get this little screw that I took off. That goes in this side. Can you see what I'm doing? I hope so. We got the sky cam, we got the side cam. We got the brush out in one piece. I take all kinds of pride in not having to buy parts, right? Especially now that I see what people charge for Harley parts. It's pretty obscene. Oh, what I didn't notice is whether the wire comes in here. I think the wire goes on the down on these instead of the up. Fortunately, that's the nice thing about filming yourself. I can go watch my own video. Okay, this is the one it came from, right? This is the insulated one. This is the armature side where the rivets have washers and insulation. See, all this is screwed up. What can we do? Dental tool? I like that. Let's give me my dental tool back where it came from. And the screwdrivers, I shouldn't be handling stuff like this. And what was I going to get? Trying to remember where I put files. So right side. You see it? Some junk's coming off. Every reason to think it's the holder, not the. It's kind of a blessing that this is the ground side. We can't get into too much trouble. Do I have a square? I got one of these wino, cheap sets. This is a triangle. Here it is. Cheap as the handle broke off. It's, you know, you'd think it's junk, but this little square file works pretty good. Get in the corners. You can hear it wants to cut. Get in this corner. Now I'll bead blast this whole plate, and I guess it ties in. The good thing I got my bead blaster all set up. It's shining up, which might be bad, right? I'm taking, you can see it's I guess that's a zinc coating, that iridescent, shiny. I'm gonna, let's go on this side. I can just barely see what I'm doing here. The bead blaster is in a way better because this will cut through the anti-corrosion finish, whatever this parkerizing stuff is. Really needs a new plate. Oh, look at that, huh? Okay, so I am going to wash my hands, go to the bead blaster, bead blast this, bead blast this. Armature we're not going to touch other than some steel wool, like I said. The manual, 1950, they must have wrote it. Don't use emery cloth. Bits of abrasive will stick in here and spark and make the brushes wear out. Use crocus cloth. I figure either Scotch-Brite or I use steel wool. And so we'll clean this thing up with steel wool. And, well, no, I don't want to handle stuff. I can take the meter here, and instead of measuring through the brushes, we'll measure right on this armature. This would be great. Save me 90 bucks. All right? Catch you in a bit. Okay, back from the bead blaster. Look at this thing, huh? It might not even be good because it looks like it's taken some of that corrosion stuff off. This was discolored, so I cleaned this up. Shot this bore a little. You know, tried to avoid getting any of the. I don't want to knock the paint off the thing. The outside looks pretty good. This seal, I thought it looks exactly the same as the seal in the 65A. It will fit over the 65A armature, but it does feel a little tight. There's two different part numbers. Let me get organized here. So for, oh, I'm brain dead, 12. For the new one, for the 65B generator, the seal is a 29911-82. Almost the identical looking thing here, 33. Seal, 30145-46A from 1946. So they are different. I said, what on earth could be different? Here's the two armatures. This area, where the seal goes on this one is about 7.49, about 0.75, right? 3/4, so 0.749. This one's a little bit smaller, 0.745. And it does feel, you know, the seal, let's see, it goes this way. And you can kind of feel the pressure there versus you audition everything, right? Well, I overshot it. Well, this one doesn't feel too bad either. But they are different parts, so beware. So let me go over what I just did to get, I have two clean bins. I have this red clean bin, stuff that went in solvent, and some parts of it went in the bead blaster, not all of it. And then this bin where it's got stuff I didn't want to dip in fluids, right, or wash off. So it's got the armature, the frame, and the two brushes. So that's all that's in this one. Let's put our brand new armature. We might not need to put an armature in this thing. So here's my little camera. When I went away, I didn't want to bore you with all this, so we'll just do a quick slideshow. Not that. This is an old Leatherman tool I bead blasted. So, first thing I should tell you about this seal, to get the seal out, a 1-inch socket. Just tapped it out. It goes in, it might not be intuitive, but it goes in so the open part and the stuff in the spring that you can see, that faces the gear, right? Because this is where the oil is. The bearings in this new 65B are sealed bearings. So it doesn't need any oil splashing on the inside bearings like the way the 65A does. So this is, and if you think about it, that's how it goes in the same orientation, but over on the other side in the 65A, where you do want engine oil to splash onto this bearing. So that was the first trick, 1-inch socket, worked good, tapped it out. So then, this is the parts washer with this part, that blue Amazon parts washer with CRC parts solvent in it, washing it all out. And then the nice thing about that Amazon $70 parts washer, it's got a brush that the brush has got the fluid coming through it, and that just works great. That gets stuff really nice and clean. This is the chrome, that's not chrome, it's this aluminum cap. I'm doing the inside of it with the brush. Then steel wool, because just like with the gas engine cases, a little steel wool. I didn't end up bead blasting the inside. I mean, why bother, right? It came out nice with steel wool. Here's steel wool. Like I say, bead blasting isn't sand blasting. So as much as I could, I used steel wool on the brush plate and got that good as I could. Okay, then over to the sink, get the stuff out of the solvent into the sink. The solvent it's not aqueous based, but it does have like a detergent that when you mix it with water, so washing it off with hot water, then you remember now's when you want to clean the bin, right? Because the bin's been dirty. So clean the bin, and then once everything's washed off, put it back in the red bin. There's all the stuff ready to go to the bead blast room in the garage. For the, like with the 65As, I didn't want to get too rude with the solvent. So the Armature, I use this miracle wipe stuff. When the pandemic hit, you couldn't get Clorox wipes, point a gun at somebody. So this stuff was available, and it's got coarser paper. It's a different chemistry than Clorox wipes, but it worked good. I just wiped down the Armature, wiped the inside and outside of the frame. The brushes I just didn't touch. I just used paper towels, dry paper towels to clean the brushes. Same deal. This now, once all that stuff's been wiped, wash this thing, right? I'm the nut about cleanliness. I don't see other YouTube mechanic care, but I care. Trust me, cleanliness is key. So, okay, here's those wipes doing the frame, and you can see how dirty the wipes got. Then this is blowing the air, you're blowing the wet parts dry. Just came out of the sink. You don't want to put wet parts in the bead blaster. Yeah, the bead blaster will kind of blow them off, but now you're mixing water in with the beads. You do not want that. So dry them off, air dry, just like you were going to put them into service without bead blasting. Yeah, I guess you know the trick for little parts. You kind of hold them in your hand and then stick the air blow off, where your pinky is, and you can kind of use the fingers as a filter to keep the parts from blowing out of your hand. So I open my fingers and you can see the nuts and the little springs and stuff. I didn't do anything to the springs other than wash them, the solvent. Here's my homemade bead blaster. You might have seen it on the bead blasting, the case shows. Clear plastic, mostly 1/4 inch on the sides, 3/8 on the top, piece of glass sheet glued on the top underneath because the plastic started to frost when the beads would hit it. I learned that lesson. The guts I got from Summit Air, not to be confused with Summit Racing in San Jose. I bought the gloves, paint CAD lids cut out to, hold the gloves. The gun with a little slope thing in the bottom. I use not ultra fine, but very fine number 10 beads. I've switched to those from the ones, they gave a beautiful finish on that 82 motor, the engine cases, and they did great on this stuff. So here's that plate going into the bead blaster. It's standing on a wire screen, and you can see the beads underneath, and you can just see the tip of the gun. And here it is with a little bit of, this is the end cap. This is how it was like gasket material or something. It didn't scrub off. The steel wool didn't take it off. Bead blasting took it off just perfect. I've lost the stainless compound, so I didn't have any compound, but I tried to polish the end cap up. Sometimes they've got a urethane coating on them and they won't polish. You got to take easy off oven cleaner, and that takes off the paint or the urethane. I guess if you put it in Berriman's Chem Dip carb cleaner, it would take off any clear stuff. So I'm not sure if this is coated. It's not cleaning up, but then again, I didn't have any compound. But it looks a little better than it used to. And then, okay, you come out of the bead blaster. I bead blasted the bolts. You could see those in there, and they cleaned up. You know, you don't want to take off any zinc coating or anything like that, but it's nice to have them clean, and it does clean the threads a little less aggressively than if you put them in a wire brush, you know, on your bench grinder. So blow all the beads off, blow yourself off, right? Be careful, don't blow an air drum, blow your hair out, get that. I change clothes, right? So I'm clean clothes so you don't contaminate where beads are flying all over with where so not as critical here because they're sealed bearings, right? So, and then fast Permatex, fast orange, clean the hands. So that's stuff I like. So that's that. Now, I guess it's time to assemble, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to take the seal. I guess we could, can you see this? Where's our sky cam? There it is. Okay. And remember, the groove goes up. So I guess the thing to do is pound, because I always like pounding. You can pound on either side if the socket's big enough. Sometimes they just press in. Never give up trying that. 1 inch. I showed you this trick, ouch, before. Why is that open? So I could cut myself. Where you put an extension. Use the use the back end of the socket because it's square, it gets out towards the edge. And this kind of helps you. Maybe I should lube this. I don't know. We'll see. Yes, I think I should. Yes, I think I should. Because I see it kind of cutting a little bit. Here. Feel everything as you do it. So it's cutting a bit. Maybe we'll put it in like this. But we will take a little bit. You could use anti-seize, lithium grease works, right? Microscopic amount of this stuff. Do a shot on the seal, because it's rubberized, so it shouldn't seal, and then a tiny little shot, oops, on the bore. Because you got all that figured out, right? Like when you're pushing something, it depends where the grease is, whether the grease builds up and gets wiped off or not. So now the flat side is going to go down, because this is the gear side. Oh, heck, it almost pushed in like that. There you go. That's how it was meant to do. Let me get the lithium grease out of my way. We recording. We got audio. Yeah, life's pretty good. Then go here. Oh, went right all the way through. Okay, so there's nothing, no shoulder. So let's just try like this. Well, let's. What? Watch me screw up so you don't have to, right? That's the saying for this show. There's still some gras-doux here in the threaded holes that wasn't hurting anything. I just left it in there. See, a little piece of black came off. You don't want that floating around your motor. Get that out. Everything else cleaned up pretty good. I could have cleaned this a little better. That's okay. So that's that. 1 inch socket is your friend. Open groove. Then, if I remember the way it went together, armature next. Armature, just with those wipes, cleaned up pretty good. I don't have it handy, I'm sorry. I got to go out of frame, get some steel wool. I don't know this is pretty coarse stuff. And you can see a lot of carbon. Let's see if we can take this off. Oh yeah, it's going to clean up nice. Like I said, the factory manual for decades to say, well, don't use emery cloth, use crocus cloth. Look at that, nice. And, how's it feel? Feels great. Now, for all I know, this might be bad because it takes the edges of the segments down. I don't know. This is what I've done. Look at the cut I got. Drawn blood on my new toolbox. Okay, I wish I had air blow off here. We have a new, this one actually has a little more drag because it's lubricated. Should have, you can't buy a needle here because Puritan values. Should have a little grease and a needle, and you get under this seal and stick a little grease, you could relubricate these bearings, but we're going to have to live without it. Examine the seal surface. Oh, it's got a little groove there. Let's use our steel wool, see if we can't clean this up too. And that's the trick about, well, you can always pound in the seal a little more or a little less to try to avoid that this little wear groove here. But that's that. So, this time let's switch to my favorite, Permatex Anti-Seize in the tube. So I used to use the pot, with a little brush on it and stuff would fall in there. So we're going to do this around this. This is the bearing that goes in there. So we got a coating there. Same principle, right? A little bit on the inner bore of this. Life is good. And although engine oil will be getting here, oops, come on. I leave the stuff in the things now to remind me. All right. And let's get lithium grease around here. And some lithium grease here on the inside of this bore. Not too much, right? All right. So does it just slip together? Yes. Love those Japanese. Let's see if I can. See, the same thing. You really should use, well, you can't reach it now. I should have maybe put the seal in second. What is, oh, I got big screw up. I got filings from that steel wool all over. Blow that out. And he sees this leaving marks. Okay, so nobody's perfect. Feels good. Where was I? Oh, tapping this in. And then I'm pretty sure those spacers came here. So this thing is ready. Notice it's got a little hole here. That's key, right? This thing is like the 65A that the brushes stick out a little, so you got to be careful handling it. Find the little roll pin. See, little roll pin there. I would just get so tickled if this thing still works. Find the little hole that you just pointed everybody to. That's that. And I gotta go get my empty can. What did I do with it? Did I keep it out here? I don't think so. All right. Then let's rebuild this brush plate while we got our stuff. We got our brushes. We got our hammer out of the way. Work out of the box. This out of the way. Measuring tool. Don't drop a hammer on it. It's always a lot of fun. Expensive mistake. So, you pay extra for this, folks. Real-time screw up. All right. It'll be so cool if we can say that this armature's still good, because that means this thing I got at a flea market for cheap. One of these has, I think, says $56 on it. Which is a kind of a funny price. Snug that one up. This one, I've lost the screw already. Okay, let's get this. We're going to start the screw just so we know where it is. I'm going to do a meld. I'll be back. All right, real time. So, little evaporated milk can. That's what I like to hold these things upright with. Okay, now where's that wire? Here's the wire. See, this is the other reason you don't want to go crazy cleaning stuff. Can we put the springs in afterwards? I don't see why not. Then you don't have to deal with stuff, right? Makes your life easy. Now, that would mean, oh, there's a pin here, right? Little roll pin. Oh, you can't see it. Little roll pin here, little slot here, right? So pay attention to that. And that goes up, that pops in. And the armature wire, it's like it just, oops. Gosh. Okay, where'd the little hole go that this goes into? I am having more trouble. Is that it? There it is. All right, okay. So anyway, you can see the armature wire just, it wants to be where it's at. Trust me. Maybe the Skycam will be good enough to show you. So, get the plate back in, a little roll pin, press it down. The armature wire, so it's pushing it up. There we go. Get this thing out. Brushes look nice and shiny. The brush holder is sitting down enough. And then this is the way the other ones were built. The armature wire comes up towards the back, and then this brush wire kind of comes down from above. And let's see if I'm right-handed. Let's make my life a little easier. Get this. I do have screw starters for these exact problem, but it's not too hard to get in. All right. See what I'm doing? So that's that. And it does feel good when it snugs up. I mean, you can still feel there's a little spring in that washer. So we're done with that. I'm done with this. Next, this is those 3 little ultra thin little washers that they call out. That goes back in here. So we'll get that ready. Meanwhile, the torsion spring, that's the nice thing, these are constant force, right? The coil springs in the old 65A, as the brush wears down, it gets less and less force. These, because they're curlicue type, that keeps a constant force. Now, are they identical? Yes, they are. Do they both look about good shape? Yes. Okay, I told you how much I like these headband magnifiers. You can't see anything, you can't fix it. That let me see this. The metal tab, it does come up here in this part of the coil, right? And then I couldn't get it in anyway. It might be they want you to put it together with the brushes out, because then there wouldn't be as much tension. But I kind of like building it like this, my preference. So needle nose. Oh, okay, that's the trick, I guess. You got to kind of push the coil to open it up a little, and then it pops down on the tab. Love the headband magnifier. What we can do is just, I mean, I could flip it all and then this will fall apart, you know, hold a cup like this so those little washers don't go anywhere. Instead, let's take a dab of lithium grease, stick it down in there, stick all this stuff, just glom it in with some grease. Since I bent that one, I didn't do myself any favors. That's one of the reasons why it's, okay. See, I mean, it rotates and stops, so what's it hitting in there, you know, obviously shorting something out. Where's the bolt holes? I know that this little slot goes, oh, see, it's not, oh, okay, I know what's going on. What's stopping it is that roll pin. Let's go, that was it, that was it. So that little boss, you know, it was going to one side of that boss, the other side, but not down. Now it's down. And of course, the tip off there is, you know, this is all lined up in this stupid hole they put in the top that ruined this thing. Okay, lithium grease, we're done. Hopefully, it rotates, that's a good sign. Should I reuse their washers? I hate that. It's not a good principle. Just in case this thing stays together, let's do what I tell you to do. They say they're 1/4-inch lock washers, but they're not. So those go back, a little piece of broken something. These guys get our anti-seize. I use anti-seize everywhere. I love this stuff. Because, you know, if you're a mechanic who's taking stuff apart, that's all it takes. And how are we going to do this? Turn it around. There it goes. Find the threads. Shouldn't be any question. Feels nice because I cleaned it good, right? Got all the beads out that might be in the threaded part. Doesn't need a lot of this stuff, right? A little bit of anti-seize, lock washer. Get this one. There we go, straight and cool. So I might as well get a little anti-seize ready. I'm the only guy on earth that does it on this nose. Everybody else is worrying about stuff falling off. Like I said, Vance Breeze, the racer, told me that anti-seize actually kind of works a little like Loctite. When it tightens up, it'll kind of keep stuff permanent. Again, apologize, my fingers are filthy. What do we got to do? Get our tools back where they belong. Get our, what did I say it was, a 5 millimeter? 5 millimeter. I got to find out what these are, the terminal. Now, if the armature doesn't measure 100,000 like it did before, we're pretty much home free. So you remember there's anti-seize, 20% less torque. Let the lock washers do the work. And back, gone, back there. I'm dying to find out. I'll give you a quick idea here. Come on, baby. I'm so excited I can't even operate the stuff. What's going on? There we go. And armature, and ohms, 0.54. We fixed this thing. 0.56, 0.55. Remember, the leads are 0.2. That's those, when you see here, these real thick wires that they use. I think we didn't need to buy an armature. But I am going to keep it because you never know when those roller bearings are going to give out. I'll put it in the tester just for fun. Do I have to show you that, well, you can put a little anti-seize, that actually helps. Can I get some? On the inside of this, on the smooth part here where it pulls on. That's always a good idea. That helps the next poor sucker. It's got to deal with this. How cool. Fixed it without spending a dime. I just get so jazzed when stuff like this happens. All right. What were we doing? We were getting ready to show you this. Anti-seize. Even though I'm taking this off in a second to put it in the tester, which will be our grand finale. A little on this way, a little over, where is it? Here. This goes with the gear, close, little nose points out. You swear it's not going on and you got to hammer it on and then just keep turning and turning and you'll find a place where the splines fit. There, close enough for government work. Rather than convert to the disc lock like I like, the disc lock washer and stuff, we'll just put this one, show you how to put it back stock, which is oil splasher washer. Sometimes you got to leave the washers off if you can't get enough of the nut on the shaft. Well, I do like this thing. Look at all this anti-seize I got. We'll clean this up. Trust me, those wipes will come in handy again. Brain damage, okay, 1/2 inch. Where can you see a good view? Is that a good view? Should be there. You can see the little gap right there, right? So we should see that closing up. You can feel it. The anti-seize is your friend, boy. And this is why I like to do it by hand. I just don't You know, okay, now I can feel it snugging up. Take a quick look. It's not quite on yet. Not quite on yet. I can still feel it snugging. Oh, there. See, by hand. And because it's prevailing torque, you don't got to worry too much. Done. Life is good. Like I say, I can almost guarantee you this baby's going to work. Didn't need one part. So this is a happy ending. I guess we could return this, but it's an awful nice piece. I think I'll just put it in the collection for, you know, I'll go through and measure these other ones. In a way, this might be cherry because it hasn't been used because it got that corrosion. When, you know, and that's my thing. Take this hole up here, plug it, drill a hole in the bottom, unless you never get caught in the rain like me. All right, happy ending. I'm going to get the tester stuff dragged over here and get this gear back off so we can test it. Then, like I say, I always like to work out of bins, two lock washers to tell us, yeah, we did replace the lock washers here and here. Should do the same for any washers, star washers on the terminal, but that'll be another little research project. All right, okay, back in a flash. Oh man, I can tell this thing's fixed. The motoring test, right? Which you can do with just a battery. Same thing, ground the field. You gotta have, here's a jumper wire, plus a white one's going to ground eventually. Here's a ground from our high voltage power supply, but we're not gonna use high voltage, we don't need to. The hot, it's grounded here. The hot goes to the armature. Watch, just a couple volts, this thing will start turning. Look at that, perfect. It's got like 2 volts on it. And it's turning nice and slow. Right? Can you see that? I guess my hand's in the way. It feels smooth, it sounds smooth. It's not a lot of drag because I don't have the clamp set up in this one. It won't fit for these bigger generators. That is, I see the current is nice and steady, 6, 7, 7.5, 8, about 25 volts and 8 amps, I would say. 25 volts and 9.2 amperes, smooth as silk. So let me go hook it up again the other way. How long would that take? Let's see, this thing could come over here. And now we're going to power it, right? We're going to plug this motor into the power supply. If I can get the lead off. And okay, so now we're running it as, instead of running it as a motor, it just happens to be turning this thing. Big thank you, Daniel O'Regan, overseas in Ireland or the UK, I'm not sure where he is. He gave me a tip about, well, he's got a buddy who used a socket to kind of get on this spline. I was using that rubber hose and it's been miserable for 30 years. I've been suffering. Hose spins off, hose splits in half. So the inspiration he gave me, take a 1/4, none of my sockets fit because it's a 4 spline and the sockets are all hex. But what I did do is I brazed a 1/4 inch drive, I think a 7/16 socket, to an old junk gear, put black tape around it and then a white stripe here so that this tachometer, which isn't working very, I got another one on order. And it was hopping and it, you know, because nothing was perfect and centered. I took a file and ground flats into the shaft of this. So now two universals are constant velocity for offset. So that solved any hopping and problems I had. Look at that, I got 5 volts already. Let's see if my little wino thing, can you read the, yeah, you can kind of see it. Test. It says, see, it's all over the place. That's why I can't trust this. 650, 650, 650. Then it's, raise it a little. Let's see. 727. So that the generator runs 125% of your engine speed. But let me see. I don't want this thing getting away from me. That'd be a mess. It's got no load on it. There's 12 volts. Oops. That says 1200 RPM, which is great because that would be idle, right? This thing's already starting to put out more than battery voltage. If I can trust this. I got one that I can press on the shaft on the way. So that's great news. Let's put a load on this. This is in the middle. Turn this one off. Turn this one on. Okay, so that's, should have safety glasses on. That's 13 volts, 9 amperes. Let's run it down. Put this one on. Get the speed back up. Not sure why it's making that noise, but full output, just like the other ones. So I was getting 12 volts, 13, 14 amps. I kind of chickened out because I was hearing some noise in my brand new. I should have safety glasses on. And I didn't get a chance. I don't trust this thing. This $20 tachometer isn't working too well. But we'll get all that figured out. Success, right? Didn't cost a penny. This was a good day in my book. We got an extra armature for the other 6 ones, if anything ever goes bad. Worst comes to worst, especially because this is a known thing. I can refer people to this video. I can resell that for the same 80, 90 bucks I paid for it. All right, happy ending. Sportster Paul is awful pleased he didn't spend a penny and got his one sick generator working. I did want to tell you that one I looked at, I opened up because it was missing a bolt. That's one where somebody has hammered the roll pins flush or whatever, and both caps turn. What a nightmare trying to get that back together. So I'm going to have to locate stuff and put a chisel mark or something to help assemble that one when I get the bolt coming. I got the $14 bolt that was missing. But I see that one was at the flea market, right? Anytime, like my buddy taught me, anytime you see something at the flea market, you got to think, why is this in the junk pile? Is it stolen? Then it's probably pretty good. It might work. Is it chopper stuff that they took off, big fenders they didn't like, means it probably works. But a lot of other stuff, like generators, is like, well, it's in the junk pile because it doesn't work. And somebody thought, well, you use the frame. So, happy day, Sportster Paul. Good luck with your Sportster project. Next, we'll start getting into these 6 armatures I bought, compare them all, and start fixing 65As, the earlier model, which is more common. All right? Catch you in a bit. Bye now.